Welcome back everyone to the Whoniverse database series. Last time we looked at the Skaro 1000 Years War that led to the creation of the Daleks. So for the second episode in this series we'll be delving into the history and multiple origins for the once human Cybermen. The Cybermen have existed all over the universe and in all different times, having countless origins depending on which faction you're talking about. Because the Cybermen aren't what you'd call a species in the traditional sense, as they never had any natural evolution cycle, but instead are the results of humans and humanoid races altering their own bodies and minds with computers and cybernetic components, with varied reasoning for such changes. As stated by the 12th Doctor, the Cybermen can get started wherever there's people with the necessary technology to become Cybermen, so that means they don't have just one genesis point, but rather there are numerous accounts of cyber factions beginning all over time and space. This makes this topic a bit tricky to talk about, but I hope I do a decent job in this video. We'll start with the first given group of Cybermen in the TV show, the Mondasian Cybermen. First seen in the first Doctor's final story, The 10th Planet, and then later brought back for the Series 10 finale, these Cybermen have also appeared in various expanded media books and audios. These Cybermen were brought about by the Mondasian, or human, population of Mondas trying to find a way to survive the deteriorating conditions on their planet. These events in particular are detailed in the Big Finish audio spare parts, which I highly recommend. The Mondasians are probably the most human Cybermen in the show's history, where you really get the sense of them being butchered human beings with severe alterations. The technology used on them looks very clunky and primitive compared to the later Cyberman designs. So these particular Cybermen originated on the planet Mondas and also on the Mondasian colony ship from World Enough and Time and the Dr. Fools, and this is an example of parallel evolution. The other major type of Cyberman in the classic series are the ones that came from the planet Telos. The true reason for the creation of the Telos Cybermen isn't set in stone, with a few different theories around to explain them. One possible scenario was that the inhabitants of Telos were trying to find the secret of immortality and so attempted to become immortal through cybernetic conversion. Another theory is that the Cybermen chose Telos as just one of the many other worlds they colonized after the destruction of Mondas. It's also been mentioned on occasion that the Cybermen had conquered Telos and replaced the Cryons as the primary species there. Another notable fact about Telos is that a group of Cybermen froze themselves in underground ice tombs on the planet after one of the major cyber wars, and as a result of this were presumed extinct after they supposedly vanished. This is shown in the second Doctor story, Tomb of the Cybermen. Fast forward to the modern series of Doctor Who and we're presented with a new breed of Cybermen. This time they originated on a parallel version of Earth and were an attempt by John Lumet to extend his own life. These Cybermen differed from the Mondasians and the Telos variants greatly. For instance, they were not cybernetically altered humans, but instead were human brains surgically removed and then welded into an entirely robotic metal suit, making the brain the only human aspect of the cyber industry's Cybermen. That's why the Cybermen in Closing Time tried to convert Craig directly rather than removing his brain and implanting it inside a suit, as these are actually survivors of the Mondasian Cybermen from the invasion, and not the parallel race seen in the David Tennant era of Doctor Who. There is also another rather interesting story involving the origins of the Cybermen that I discovered while making this video. In the Series 10 finale, the Doctor mentions some different worlds on which Cybermen have sprung up from, and among these he mentions Marinus, Planet 14 and Mondas. In the comic story The World Shapers, it's seen that the planet Marinus, the same Marinus that's the main setting for the William Hartnell story The Keys of Marinus, has been inhabited by the Vord from the aforementioned episode. These Vord attempt to accelerate their own timeline and end up becoming a new race of Cybermen themselves. There's much controversy as to whether Marinus is actually Mondas before it was known as such, as this would contradict Spare Parts and the 10th Planet, and would also mean that Marinus is actually Earth's twin planet. It's also interesting to note that the Doctor lists Planet 14, Marinus and Mondas separately in the Doctor Fools, but it's still debated whether these three are different planets altogether or if they are in fact all the same planet. These kinds of retcons and contradictions in the Doctor Who universe make many subjects like this one difficult to talk about. The Cybermen's history is essentially one of survival and trying to convert the whole universe to Cybermen. no matter what faction or variation they are. The Cybermen have also been involved in several large-scale wars both against humanity and other species. The Telos-derived Cybermen were well known for having a deadly allergy to gold. This fact led them to once attempt to destroy the whole of Voga, a planet made entirely of gold. They also attempted to obliterate the Earth government during a conference to unite against the cyber race using an Earth freighter loaded with antimatter. The attempt failed and instead became the cause of the extinction of the dinosaurs and also resulted in the death of the Doctor's companion Adric. Whatever the Cybermen have done, one thing is always certain. Wherever there are humans with technology, the Cybermen could always potentially get started there, and that's what makes them such a terrifying threat. I would love to add more to this video, but there's just so much content on the Cybermen that I could honestly sit here for days on end and not run out of things to say. So I think it's best that I stop here. I covered some of the major points I thought were the most interesting, and I hope you enjoyed it. In the next episode, I'll be taking us through the strange other universe of E-Space. See you then.